Hi, this is Mike Wall. Welcome back to another episode of the Agent Revolution podcast presented by Mike Wall Live, the place where we deconstruct the biggest challenges facing today's real estate agents so that they can build a sustainable, profitable, but most of all, fulfilling real estate business. Man, I'm excited today. I'm joined by my friend Andy Mulholland, and we are talking everything business financials. And I know a lot of you are going, oh, God, here we go, right? Because the truth of the matter is, a lot of us don't do a really good job of keeping our financials, right? Some of us make so much money that we think it doesn't really matter, and we don't know where we're hemorrhaging money. We don't know where we're making money. And so really the point behind today's show is gonna help you kind of tighten up where you may be where you may be a little loose. And so I'm excited to bring on my friend Andy and share his story. But before we do that, you guys don't forget, you can always go and get free real estate business training. In fact, we have 8 hours worth of free real estate business training at mikewalllive.com. Andy, are you ready to rock and roll, my man?
Let's do it. Let's do it, Mike.
Let's do it, brother. So before we get started, man, I always do a quick background on everybody. And for those of you who have been hiding under a rock for the last 7 or 8 years and don't know Andy Mulholland, tell us a little bit about you, man. And I was talking to you before the show. Like, I followed you a long time ago, man. I know you retired back in 2018, but you were at the top of the game, right? I mean, you literally had probably, I don't know, you're probably doing 400 or 500 deals.
No, we weren't that big. I mean, we live in a market of about 100,000 people. So we were doing between 250 and 300 deals a year with a small, tight knit team.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's impressive, man, to say the least. And I think that, you stepped away from the game. And I know a lot of people that will tune in and listen to this will be excited to hear your story, why you did that and what you're doing now. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? Tell me how you got into real estate, first of all, and then how you got out.
Yeah, well, just, to kind of briefly give you an idea of my story, I'll make it short and sweet, but my wife and I came across Dave Ramsey. In fact, I was in a traveling kind of sales job, and I was in the car a lot listening to AM radio and came across Dave Ramsey, heard people yelling on the radio that they were debt free. And this was a foreign concept to me, right? Because we had student debt. My wife was a nurse at the Mayo Clinic. She had student debt. I had, regular debt that was out there. And we decided, we're going to pay our debt off. So I got a second job as a limo driver. She worked overtime at the hospital, and we just went nuts for about 8 months and paid off tens of thousands of dollars in debt. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we did that, it's funny, things just kind of opened up. It's like, wow, now I could start a business. I could do something beyond just having this job. And so real estate was something we'd always talked about. My dad and my grandpa were home builders and had a brokerage many, many years ago. So it was kind of somewhat natural to be able to just kind of step right into that. So I did. Mm-hmm. That was 2009. October of 2009, I got my license and kind of went full time 2010. So that's kind of what got me going. Got it.
And how quickly did your business take off?
I mean, pretty quick. I mean, the first year I did 28 deals. The second year, 48. Third year, 78. I don't know why I always hit the eights, but I did for those first 3 years. Then started to grow a team. Grew over 100, then went over 200, and we're breaking 300. So that was all in a matter of 8 years. I built it from me being a solo brand new agent 8 years later to a team of anywhere from 12 to 15 people doing, 250 to 300 deals a year.
Okay. And what do you attribute that scale to? I mean, you obviously, that's pretty quick, man. I mean, you don't see a lot of people scale a business, especially in real estate, that quickly. What do you attribute that to?
All the people that have gone before me. I'm a big believer in just learning from others and implementing. And I learn by just getting my hands dirty and doing it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like if there's others that have gone before me. So I've coached with so many different coaches, Jay Kinder, Mike Reese, John Kitchens, Eric Hatch, Brian Moses, Lars Hedenborg, like all these guys who have unbelievable vision and they just been in the trenches before. They've done it. Yep. And I just did what they did. And that's really all that there was to it. Yeah, we got creative. We had fun with marketing. I love that side of the business. I honestly think the biggest reason I was able to grow as quickly as I did is because I made a decision in probably 2013, I think it was, so 3 years in, that the way that I had seen so many other top agents build their business was not how I wanted to build mine.
Elaborate on.
Yeah, I wanted a business, not a job, right? We've all kind of heard that and talked about that, I'm sure. And I just saw so many agents that have been in the business for 10, 20, 25, 30 years, and they're still grinding in transactions. And I said no. Shortly after I got into the business, we had our first child. We have 4 now, and we always wanted 4, my wife and I. And I just said, I don't care if I walk away from this industry. I kind of went in with I was like, whatever. If it all falls apart, fine, I'll find something else. I'm not going to build a job for myself and work 7 days a week in this business. I'm just not going to do it. Yeah. And it'll either fail and I'll walk away, or it's going to be successful. And luckily for me, it was successful. So
yeah, that's awesome. And so when you finally decided to retire or step away from the business, what had happened? Like, walk me through when you decided, you know what, it's time.
Yeah, I mean, it had been a conversation for a couple of years. I had built the business to where I was out of production, so I didn't do any of our deals. I was running our team. I'd go in on Tuesdays typically and run the team meetings. I had an operations director that really ran the day to day, and I had a sales manager that led the sales team. And it was set up well, although, and I guess I thought, hey, I had set this business up to where, I could step away completely or be very little involvement in the business in the day to day, and still live a really good lifestyle. And that was the case for some of the time. But then sure enough, somebody'd quit, right? Somebody'd move away, whatever, and you'd get sucked back in the business. So what I found is there really is no true 7th level, or at least the way I was building it, there really wasn't a true 7th level, where you are just the owner and that's it. And so for me, I guess I realized that the business had served its purpose for me and my wife. We were very good economically. She is an expert when it comes to budgeting and being purposeful with our business income. And because the business was highly profitable, I was able to save a lot of money and put myself in a position where I didn't have to do the business anymore. I didn't have to. And I guess when I had that option, I realized that, you know what, the choice was there. And for about a year, we talked about it and finally decided, you know what, I think it's time to do something else. Yeah. And so I actually jumped into to coaching as well. I was Lars Hedenborg's lead business coach at Real Estate B School for about 2.5 years, and was doing that. That allowed me to live the lifestyle I wanted to as well, which was to, travel. We had a big RV. We would travel all over the country and do some of that stuff. So that really allowed me to walk away from the day-to-day real estate business as well.
Yeah. Are there any regrets?
I mean, some days you're like, what did I do? I just walked away from a multi-million-dollar GCI business, and I literally just walked away. And I said, adios, I'm out. And some days I wonder what I was thinking. Some days I miss it. But then again, I spend so much time with my 4 kids. And for me, that was where I wanted to be, versus, running the real estate team. Even if it meant, I didn't have this high income producing team anymore, that was okay. My definition of success was not to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. My definition of success was to grow a business where it could generate enough income and time for me where at some point I didn't need it anymore. And when I realized I was there, it was easy to just kind of walk away. So the days I regret it, I remember that, and my wife reminds me, and it puts a smile on my face. So.
Yeah, oftentimes I find that usually when regret creeps in, it's because ego crept in.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and because those types of things like that and material things obviously feed the ego, right? And that's what makes the ego strong. And it's not like we weren't built so that the ego we can destroy the ego. We can just not acknowledge the ego. And when we don't acknowledge it, it tends to shut up. And so, but that doesn't mean that we don't have our days, right? When it shows back up, because we see somebody else doing something. That's what happens for me, right? Is, right. I log into Facebook and I see, somebody sold 1,000 homes, and it's like, well, I can do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, right. That ego starts to creep back in, and I get, I got to catch myself when that happens. But I so respect what you did, man, because I don't know a lot of people that had made it to your level in our business that would be willing to step away, even if they had the financial ability to do so, because it almost becomes like an identity. You know what I mean? It really does.
100%. And there's days where I wonder, who am I now, right? I was this real estate team leader, business owner for 10 years. Who am I now? And you definitely wonder, and that ego part creeps in. And so I totally agree with what you say there, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's just a great story, man. And I knew that was, I'd actually really been looking forward to talking with you, because I wanted to hear more about that, because part of me envies that. You know what I mean? It's like, there are days that, I would love to be able to step away from my business and do what you're doing. I mean, I have 2 children, one's 17, one 12, and obviously have more time to spend with them. But, part of me still loves doing what I do. And so, right. I'm torn, I guess, in that regard. But it's not like you're not doing anything. And in fact, you're doing, I would say, probably what you're passionate about doing. And that's because you have the ability to do that. And, that kind of segues into today's topic, which is, exploring, real estate business financials. And so, but what I want to know is, like, how did this come about? Like, where was this idea born? And then walk me through the steps to, kind of putting this in motion.
Yeah. So a lot of it started from the fact that my wife did all of our financials for our team. And I was really working closely with Lars Hedenborg, who is a great business person. I mean, he's got a business background. He just happens to be in real estate. And he, really educated me and had my mind open to being clear on what the goal is with the business financially, and then making sure that we're tracking against that regularly, especially if you want to get out of production. And so I saw how important, if I wanted to stay out of production and still make money, good money, I had to watch my financials and understand what the main or the most important numbers were to track. I'll tell you, I've never been a numbers person, right? My wife has been. I remember when we were kids, we've been dating since we were in high school, and I used to stop at the bank because I'd get overdraft fees because I would never balance my checkbook. Like, that's just how, if there's money in the account, I spent it. And I even did that for a few years in my real estate business, until I realized, if I ever want to get out of production, if I ever want to build this thing to be profitable without me selling, I've got to get my economic model correct.
Yeah.
So working with Lars, I understood where it needed to be. And then my wife really helped me make sure that I was keeping up with that, knowing I was never going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So we set up a rhythm. There were certain reports I needed from her every single month, every other week. And we implemented Profit First from Mike Michalowicz. Like, we implemented all of those systems in our business. And when we closed the business, part of it is she got a little bored. And part of it was because being a coach with Lars and running some of his coaching programs, I realized how many people were not tracking that stuff.
Yeah.
And if they were, they oftentimes didn't even know what they were looking at or what they should be looking at. Because look, they're good at selling real estate. They're good at motivating people and creating a vision. Not like me, they just weren't necessarily good at tracking financials and having clarity on what the economic model should look like.
Yeah.
So, and for me, it's a passion, because if we did not, all the way starting way back from Dave Ramsey, before I ever got into real estate, if we didn't have a plan with our money, if we weren't good stewards of the money that God has given us and allowed us to have in our lives, we wouldn't be able to spend the time we do with our kids now. And so if I can help that, if I can help others, if her and I can help others do that, then, it gives us a little bit of, it really allows us to help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, it's so like you talk about, this quote unquote seventh level, right? And we've all read Gary Keller's book, and we understand what seventh level means, or at least the the vision of seventh level, or it's I guess you're right. It's really hard to obtain that because oftentimes there are reasons that you might have to step back into the business. But why I think this is really critical is because I sold real estate for a long time, right? And I sold a lot of real estate, and I never really had to manage my financials because we just had so much money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was really exposed is when I quote unquote stepped away from the business, right? Because what happens when you step away from the business is you're losing that production or you're giving it away at half the price, right? Essentially, because if you have your team on a split of 50-50 or 35, 65 based on listings or buyers, then basically you're taking whatever your income was and you're giving it half or almost half of it away. And you've got to be able to replace that money if your business is dependent on that operating income, right? And if you're an agent and you're making $500,000 and you have $400,000 worth of expenses, and then you quote unquote step away from the business, and then you give away 35% or 50%, there's a problem there, right? Immediately. And oftentimes you don't realize that until it's too late if you don't track. And so I know a lot of people are going to watch this and kind of roll their eyes because there's a lot of solo agents who watch the show. But talk to me about the importance of even being a solo agent and tracking your financials.
Well, I mean, it all starts with being clear on what the goal is, right? Like, what are we trying to do with the business financially? We got to get clear on what that is. Whether we're solo or we have a team, it doesn't matter. What is the goal, not just for the GCI, but for the net profit? What do we want to walk away from our business with financially? And I think there are really two report cards in our business. I always tell my clients that there's two report cards. There is your calendar and there is your P&L. And oftentimes we don't look at either one and they're just there. And so the P&L, there's really a few numbers that we have to, in the business we run, teaching people about their financials and doing their bookkeeping for them. We teach them the 5 simple numbers. Our company's called Simple Numbers, right? If there's only 5 that they need to be tracking in their business, and unfortunately in most real estate teams, most real estate agents, they track 1, right? GCI.
Right.
How much in commission did they make? And did they generate? How much hit their account? And I think that, we celebrate that. People oftentimes get on stage at events. I did, to be able to speak because I had this GCI. Little did people know, maybe I didn't make any money that year. Nobody had any idea. And so we have to be careful of that. That's what we typically track most. But there are 4 others that we have to be looking at. Okay. And when you look at your P&L, we really want you to set it up in the right way. And I hope I don't get too detailed here, but I think it's super important people understand what their 5 numbers are.
Okay.
Yes, you have to know what the GCI is. Secondly, if you have a team, you have to know your cost of sale. Or if you're at a brokerage somewhere, you have to know what your cost of sale is. Cost of sale is very simply the amount you paid out to agents for their portion of the split and to your broker for their portion of the split, whether it's a desk fee or it's a split, doesn't matter. How much went out, right? Then that leaves you with the 3rd number, the 3rd simple number, which is your gross margin or gross profit. Some people refer to that as. This is what you have left after you paid your agent and agents and your broker. And then we have the 4th number, which is your expenses. Mm-hmm. How much did you spend on stuff? And there's typically 3 categories of stuff. There's people, marketing, and overhead. Mm-hmm. And that leaves you with the 5th and final number, which is your net profit.
Right.
And owner pay. Anything you paid yourself in a salary plus any profit from the business. Those are the 5 numbers, whether you're an agent or a team, that you've got to be tracking. If you're a team, it becomes that much more important, especially if you want to get out of production.
Yeah. From
every team that I've coached, when the lead agent's in production, I always ask them, why are you still in production, especially if they want to get out? Some don't want to get out, totally fine. But oftentimes it's those that want to get out and can't figure out how, it's almost always a financial issue. If they stepped out of production, they'd actually be losing money or making very little, as you kind of alluded to earlier. And that's because they're not running an economic model that allows them to step away. Yeah. And so that's what we want to help people avoid, is don't build this massive business, get on the top of the Real Trends list, show up on stage at your next broker event, but then be stuck in production and not be able to get out, because that's not a business you want to build anyway, right? If you truly are building this like a business. So that's kind of the way we look at the financials. Yeah,
it's a great point, man. And let me ask you this: like, obviously, the net number for somebody that's obtained this quote unquote 7th level, and the net number for somebody who's still in production are going to be different in most cases, especially in the beginning, as you transition out of production. What do you think a good net number for somebody that's stepped out of production is?
Well, we teach a 35% net profit and owner pay model, 100% out of production. Yeah. So on every $1 million you do in GCI, you should be making $350,000, 0 production from the team leader.
Yep.
And that's the model that you need to be running.
Yep.
So, and if you're in production, if the lead agent's doing a decent amount of production, when I say decent, I mean 50% of the total team production or more, they need to at least be at a 50% net profit and owner pay number. Yeah. Because now they can afford to pay out a little bit more to the agent, step out of production, and still maintain a 35% net.
Yep.
So that's really the model. I mean, the economic model I ran was 35% net profit. So at the end of the day, I had 35% to pay myself in salary and profit. Now, and that was pre-tax, right? So we did about $2 million in GCI, so we'd be able to make $700,000 in net profit doing 0 production. That was what I wanted to build the whole time, and that's the model I followed. Then I spent 30% on my expenses, 10% on people, 10% on marketing, and 10% on overhead, for a total of 30% on expenses. So that totals 65%. So I had 35% left to pay out my agents on average.
Right.
And my agents, I had them split between buyer's agents and listing agents, and they were split down the middle. We had 2 listing agents and 5 to 6 buyer's agents that were selling all of our real estate. And we averaged, 25% split to the listing agents. They both made about $200,000 a year, and 45% to the buyer's agents after, we were able to charge our admin fee and our broker fee, because I was an independent agent. And that averaged out to about 35%. So it's really a third to your agents and broker, a third to your expenses, and a third to you to split with the government. And that's really the model if you're 100% out of production.
Yeah, love it, man. And so let me ask you this, because obviously this is some pretty high level stuff as it relates to getting to a specific level of your business. So for the layman, let's say the agent who, they're on their own, or maybe it's themselves and an admin, or themselves and an admin and a couple team members, and they really want to start drilling down their expenses, and they understand obviously the 5 key components that you talked about, but they haven't really started yet. Like, what do you recommend?
Well, I recommend they just get QuickBooks, and either get QuickBooks, start to, at the end of the month, spend a half an hour with yourself and get your expenses categorized. Yeah. And that's really as simple as it needs to be. I would encourage them to set up, again, not to get too technical here, because I didn't know any of this stuff, and it was all over my head for many, many years, but their chart of accounts. Right? So those 5 simple numbers, making sure they're setting up their P&L so that it reflects those 5 numbers, so that they can quickly and easily, without spending 2 hours trying to understand their P&L every month, what are my 5 numbers? They can hire someone part-time to come into their office and do this for them if they have the financial ability. They can hire us at Simple Numbers. This is what we do. Bookkeeping, in addition to profit first implementation and financial accountability and planning. And so that's kind of what our service is at Simple Numbers. But they got to have somebody. Somebody's got to do it. We can't get to the end of the year and then have our CPA spit out a final number for us and say, oh, great, it looks like I made money this year. That's what we really want to be avoiding.
Got it. And Andy, do you guys have like an ideal client? Is there some time? Are you guys working with solo agents, or are you just working with teams, or
Yeah, our ideal client really is teams or people who want to build a team, because my passion comes from helping people build a business, not just being a high paid agent with a really good paying job. So, we work with a lot of teams, multi-million-dollar teams throughout the country that want help building this so that it isn't dependent on their production. So for me, the ideal client is someone who's got a team and is stuck in production and can't figure out how to get out. We can help them put a plan together and help them track it and move in that direction. Or someone who's getting started wanting to build a team. They have the desire to want to build a team, but they don't know how to set up their splits. They don't know how to set up their financials. They don't know how to set up their books, and they need help moving in that direction. That's really who we at Simple Numbers cater to.
yeah? And what's the vision? Cast out maybe 5 or 10 years. What's the vision for Simple Numbers?
Well, I mean, it's really to be the go-to. I hate to use the word bookkeepers, because that's just like one of the things we do.
Yeah.
We do bookkeeping so that we can help people achieve their goals with their real estate business. But 5 years from now, I mean, our plan is that we will have a team of certified bookkeepers that will be servicing the clients. And we have, either myself or my wife, who's involved in the business as well, or others helping with that strategy around what should my numbers look like? Where should they be? Am I doing good or am I not?
Yeah.
So really maintaining that piece of advice as far as our bookkeeping goes as well.
Sure. And what does it look like to get started with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, people go to our website, simple-numbers.com, and either people click on the button to request a quote.
Okay.
There's 4 or 5 questions that we need to have answered so that we can get you a quote for our services. Or they can click on a button that says free financial analysis or a free financial strategy session. It's basically myself jumping on the phone with you and either looking at the financials you have or don't have, but helping you organize them and figure out, where are you off? Are you on the right track to build the business you're looking for? Or are you setting yourself up for failure, and you're going to be stuck in production 5 years from now if you keep on that trend? So it's one of those 2 ways, either a quote or just a quick financial strategy session with us, and we can help you from there.
Got it. And are you guys, when somebody elects to hire you all, are you fairly hands-on? How involved are you?
Yeah, I mean, every month I do a full P&L review for every one of our clients.
Okay.
So I look at their P&L, and we have it set up to where it's very systems driven, like our real estate business was. So one day a month, I just go through everyone's P&L, just boom, 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 boom. I can see their numbers, and I know what their goals are for their business, and I can tell them they're either green or they're red. And if they're red, I give them my advice. Here's where you need to make some changes in order to get that back to green. If their percentages are off in their P&L, if they're spending too much, or they're paying out too much to their broker or their agents, whatever the case might be.
Got it.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. And again, you said the website was simple-numbers.com, and there's a couple different buttons there. There's request a quote, right? And then there's set up a free strategy session.
Right.
And that's how people can get on your calendar for a review of their financials. Well, brother, this has been really insightful, man. I think a lot of people, they don't want to have this conversation about the finances and it's not because they don't think they should. It's because they know what's going wrong, right? And nobody wants to be exposed. I mean, myself included, right? And, we had to take a hard look at our expenses a couple years back. And I did some coaching also with Lars and enjoyed my time at Real Estate B School. And, he was a big proponent of helping us track everything, right? Our cost per lead, our lead acquisition cost, all that stuff. I mean, we started, we were tracking all that stuff. And, that's when we really started to get profitable, when we started to analyze all the money we were spending. And not only that, but we were able to reallocate funds into more profitable avenues and extract funds from things that were, quote unquote, bleeding money, right? And so that's an important component of anybody's business, whether you're a single agent or you have a team with 15 people. You need to know that and here's the tricky part, man. There are some people that are spending $1 right now, and for every dollar they're spending, they're getting $3 or $4 back. And that may seem on the surface like a really good investment, but what you don't understand is there are also other areas of your business where you're spending $1 and you're getting $16 back. And maybe you're not allocating enough funds to that oil well, so to speak, right? And so if you redistribute those funds to the dollar you invest, you're getting 16 back, then maybe you double your profits without a lot of effort. But if you have no sense of where you're at financially and you're not tracking anything, you never know that.
Right. I agree, and I think some of the other big issues that I'm seeing people make there is, even if they do know that that's the case and they have a bookkeeper telling them these things, they're not sure how to fix it. They're not sure how to change it. Well, what should I do differently? How should I set my economic model differently? And also, probably the biggest frustration I'm hearing from people with their financials is that whether they hire a local person or they have a national company doing it, it could be months after the month is over before they know what their numbers were for that month. And that's an issue. It is one of the reasons our guarantee is that everyone gets their reports in the first 7 days of the month. So they're usually within 5 days, but no more than the first week, you will have all of your you'll have your P&L and your P&L review from me in those first 7 days of every single month. And that just comes from having the right people in place and having systems. But you've got to be tracking your numbers early in the month so that if you need to make changes, you can do it before, it's too late, too many months go by.
Absolutely, brother. Well, I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to jump on with us today. I know, obviously,
thanks for having me.
You've given us obviously a couple means of getting a hold of you via the website. Is there any other way you prefer people to reach out to you other than the website if they just have questions about you started with you or finances?
Yeah, Simple Numbers is on Facebook as well, and so they can look us up there, or they can email me at any time. It's Andy@simple-numbers.com as well. So any one of those ways is just fine.
Awesome. And well, as usual, I love sharing these stories week after week. I know this show is literally changing agents' financial lives, my own included. Do me a big favor. If you know someone that might enjoy the podcast, please share it with them. And if you like the podcast, please go wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure you subscribe. If you like Mr. Andy Mulholland's episode today, make sure and give us a 5-star review. Don't forget to visit MikeWallLive.com where you can get 8 hours of absolutely free real estate business training. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon. Andy, thank you so much, my man.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Really enjoyed it, brother.